Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel, and Mir Hashem today we will be learning Daf Yud Daled Amid Aleph. Our learning today should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael Hanasunim Batzara Bashivya Ha'imdim Bein Bayamu Bein Bayabasha Hamakom Yerachem Aleihem V'Yitziim Yitzar L'Rvacha Me'afelu L'Oira U'Mishiba L'Geula Hashta Bagala U'Bizman Kariv V'Naimar Amen. So we are continuing to learn Erev Shabbos. We pick up today on Daf Yud Daled Amid Aleph, 2 lines from the top, Siman Reish Mem Tes Sif Beis. We are discussing Dinim Hashayachim LeErev Shabbos, halachas that pertain to Erev Shabbos and to the proper preparations for Shabbos. Says the Mechaber Sif Beis. Aser likbaya be'erev Shabbos suda u'mishta she'ena ragel b'me'achol. You're not allowed to sit down to a meal on Erev Shabbos that's more substantial than the typical meal you would eat during the week. Now, the Mechaber's Lashon over here, Aser likbaya be'erev Shabbos. We are used to, when we see the phrase of Kvias Suda in Halacha, if you think about when we learned Hilchas Brachas, Hilchas B'tzias HaPas, we're used to thinking about Kvias Suda in terms of eating a kibetza of pas. Right? That's called Kviya Suda. Once you eat a kibetza of pas, you're being Kviya Suda. Could be that even if you don't eat lechem, you could be Kviya Suda on pas of Babakistan, etc., etc. So all of our discussions of Kviya Suda always center around that question of kibetza and a pas, or something like that. That's not what the Mechaber means here. The Mechaber, when he says here, Aser likbaya be'erev Shabbos Suda u'mishta she'ena ragel b'me'achol, he means to sit down to a meal. You don't sit down to a meal on Erev Shabbos that's more substantial than the typical meal you would eat during the week. So don't sit down on Erev Shabbos and decide, you know what, today, Erev Shabbos, this morning, I'm in the mood of a really geschmacka breakfast. So you're going to sit down and you can eat a bigger breakfast than you ever eat. Or it comes lunchtime, I'm really hungry. I want to sit down and eat a nice geschmacka lunch, and you're going to eat a bigger lunch than you eat the rest of the week. You don't do that on Erev Shabbos, and we will see why. Continues the Mechaber, Va'afilu sudas erison. This is true, even if you are making a su'udas erison. What's a su'udas erison? So we know that marriage in halacha has 2 parts to it. First is Kiddushin, and then there's Nisuin. By our chassidus nowadays, we do Kiddushin and Nisuin basically at the same time. Kiddushin is when the chassid puts the ring on the kala, he gives the kala the ring. That is Kiddushin. Nisuin, well, Nisuin, there's a question when we accomplish Nisuin nowadays. Is it by Yichud? Is that when we're accomplishing Nisuin? Some people hold that Chuppah also makes Nisuin, in which case we would be making Kiddushin and Nisuin mamish at the same time. But halachically, marriage consists of 2 stages, Kiddushin and Nisuin. The other word that is used in Shas for Kiddushin is erison. So back in the day, when they made Kiddushin at one time, and they made Nisuin at another time, sometimes up to a year later, they would make a Suda by the Kiddushin. So that's what we would call a Sudas erison. So says the Mechaber, if you're making an erison on Erev Shabbos, and you want to sit down and make a Sudas erison, you can't make a big erison party and make a substantial Suda if it's going to be a larger Suda than you would typically make during the week. And what's the reason for this halacha? Says the Mechaber, Mipnei Kvaid HaShabbos. This is an inyan of proper kavod Shabbos. What's the issue? Says the Mechaber, Sheyikanes l'Shabbos kushu ta'ev lechol. Because a primary part of kibbutz Shabbos is to have a choshev of Shabbos Suda. Now, if people are going to come to the Shabbos Suda Friday night, I'm not really hungry. I ate so much today, I can't look at food. I'll just have kiddush, I'll have a little bit of wine, I'll be yotzes zayin, I'll wash, I'll eat a kibetza, maybe I'll snack on something, but I don't want to eat anything. That's not kavod Shabbos. Kavod Shabbos is, you come into a Shabbos Suda, you're hungry, you want to eat a geschmack Suda l'kavod Shabbos, that's kavod Shabbos. If you're going to eat a meal on Erev Shabbos that's bigger than your typical meal, we're afraid you're going to come into Shabbos when you're not hungry, and that's going to be a lack, a chesaron, in Kavod Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Zayin. Also likpaya. The Isa b'Gemara says the Chavetz Chaim. If you want to know how chomer this is, Isa b'Gemara. There's a Gemara in Gittin Lamed Ches Amud Beis. The Haisa Mishpacha b'Yerushalayim. There was a family in Yerushalayim shekava seudasa be'erev Shabbos that was kevei asuda. They made a kviyas suda. They made a nice suda on Erev Shabbos, the nekra, and that mishpacha Nebuch was lost from Klal Yisrael. It looks from the Gemara over there that they even did this ashtikol l'shem shamayim. They were kaveya a suda on Erev Shabbos because they didn't want to be kaveya a suda on Shabbos at the same time as the drasha of the Rav. So they made a bigger suda on Erev Shabbos, but for whatever reason, this is considered a chesaron in Kavod Shabbos and nekra. Ois Katan Ches be'erev Shabbos. The Mechaber talks here about Erev Shabbos. Says the Chavetz Chaim hu adin be'erev Yom Tov. The same halacha would apply on Erev Yom Tov. The Yom Tov nami mitzvah la'angoy u'lechabdoi. Because the same way we have a mitzvah of Kavod Shabbos and Oinig Shabbos, there's also a mitzvah of Kavod and Oinig Yom Tov. He brings this down from the Pri Megadim. Ois Katan Tes Sudas Erison. The Mechaber said even to make a substantial Sudas Erison on Erev Shabbos is aser. Says the Mishnah Berurah Pirish im eras kaidem lochein. This is true if the Erison actually took place before Erev Shabbos. So the Kiddushin, let's say, took place on Tuesday, but you wanted to schedule the celebration for a time when all of your friends and relatives are available, and you checked everybody's calendars, and they're all available on Erev Shabbos. So the Kiddushin took place not on Erev Shabbos. You want to make the Sudas Erison on Erev Shabbos. That the Mechaber says you're not allowed to do. Lochein, Pirish, im Eris Kaidem Lochein, if the Erison actually took place before Erev Shabbos, Aser Lasei Sasuda be'erev Shabbos, then you're not allowed to make the Suda on Erev Shabbos. The after Sudas Erison he mitzvah, because even though a Sudas Erison is considered a Sudas mitzvah, mikamaka mehayalo lahakdima. But what was the excuse to hold it on Erev Shabbos? If the Kiddushin actually took place on Tuesday, make the Suda on Tuesday. Why are you pushing it off to Erev Shabbos? Aval im eras be'erev Shabbos. But let's say the Erison actually took place on Erev Shabbos. In that case, says the Chavetz Chaim, and he brings this down from the Magen Avram, the Gra, and he says other Achronim as well, then mutter lasei sasuda, then it would be mutter to make a substantial Sudas Erison even on Erev Shabbos. The Kavan de Erison Sharia be'erev Shabbos, because since it's mutter to make Kiddushin on Erev Shabbos, and why is it mutter to make Kiddushin on Erev Shabbos? Mishum shelo yikadmenu acher, because when it comes to Kiddushin, there's always a svara of Shem yikadmenu acher. If the Chassan found the Kala that's pleasing to him, and he's ready to make Kiddushin, we say, don't wait around. Make the Kiddushin, because lest somebody else come and chapais the Kala. So go ahead and make the Kiddushin now. So since it's mutter to make the Erison on Erev Shabbos, memela sharia suda lozeh gamkein. So then the Suda is also going to be mutter. This is based on what we're going to see very shortly in the Ramah. The Ramah says while there's a halacha that you don't make a significant Suda on Erev Shabbos, if it's a Sudas mitzvah that's bismana, like the Suda of a bris milah, that the bris milah is taking place on Erev Shabbos, then the zman of that Sudas mitzvah is Erev Shabbos. A pidyon haben, if a pidyon haben falls out on Erev Shabbos, that's a Sudas mitzvah, and the zman is Erev Shabbos. Then you can make a substantial Suda for that Sudas mitzvah. So too over here, if you're allowed to make Erison on Erev Shabbos, and Erison comes together with the Sudas mitzvah of the Sudas Erison, then you're allowed to make the Sudas Erison too. So when the Mechaber says you can't make a Sudas Erison, that's talking about when the Erison actually took place before Erev Shabbos. And for your convenience, you decided to make the Suda on Erev Shabbos, that you cannot do. V'chashuva k'may Sudas milu pidyon haben shezmana kavua. V'chein, similarly says the Chavetz Chaim, imahayu Hanisuin be'erev Shabbos. If somebody made the second stage of marriage on Erev Shabbos, they made the suin on Erev Shabbos, mutar la'asu suda gamkein, then you're allowed to make a sudas nisuin on Erev Shabbos. So this is a little bit more complex. If you take a look at the Sharitzion as Katan Yud Aleph, he says the after laha Yerushalmi osir. Really, the Yerushalmi says sudas nisuin would be osir on Erev Shabbos. Why? Because what's the svara to be matter Sudas Erison? The svara to be matter Sudas Erison is mutter because Shem yikadmenu acher. But that doesn't apply to Nisuin. Once a woman already had Kiddushin, she's usher to everybody. Hareat mikudeshes li. The word mikudeshes, Taisa says, what does it mean? Hareat mikudeshes li. You are set aside to me. Because once I make Kedushin with a woman, she's also l'kulei alma. She's also to everybody else. But, so once a woman had Kedushin, there's no longer a svar of Shem Yikad Meno Acher. Nobody else could chap her ois. So, like the Sharet Zion writes, the Aftel Yerushalmi also Mishum Shein Shach Bazeh Shelo Yikad Meno Acher Shekvar Niskacha Mikol Mokoim Alei Abavli Choylek Al Sev Kaim Alod Kebavli. However, if you take a look at the Gemara Ma'id Katan Tesam and Aleph, you'll see that the Bavli disagrees with this, not with the Svara, but with the Halacha, and therefore, since it's mutter to make Nisuin on Erev Shabbos, Memela, the Sudas Nisuin becomes a Sudas Mitzvah Bismana, and you're allowed to make the Sudas Nisuin on Erev Shabbos. Excuse me. However, nevertheless, says the Mishnah Berurah, when we come Okaim, nevertheless, Lechatchila Toiv V'Nachain Im Efsher. The Mishnah Berurah says that Lechatchila, it would be good, it would be proper, if at all possible, Litchais HaSu'uda Lamachar, to push off the Sudas Nisuin to the next day, to Shabbos, or Yom Acher, or a different day, Afilu Be'eras Be'erev Shabbos, even if the Erisin took place on Erev Shabbos, Chavetz Chaim says it would be better to push off the Suda. V'dan, you should know, says the Mishnah Berurah, to Kol Zeh B'Sudas Erisin. This is by a real bona fide Sudas Erisin, meaning that there was Kiddushin, and you're making a Suda to celebrate the Kiddushin. Aval B'Suda She'oisen B'Shiduchin Shalanu. But the Vort that we make nowadays, aka an engagement party, that has no basis in halacha. Engagement, people sometimes make a mistake. They think Kiddushin is suin, engagement, marriage. No. Kiddushin is Kiddushin. A Sudas Erisin is celebrating Kiddushin, which has halachic status and ramifications. If a woman would be mezana after Kiddushin, should be chayv misa. So it's a real marriage. It's not complete yet. You still have to make nisuin. But Shidduchin, Avort, is celebrating essentially nothing. So, Avol Besudish Aisa Beshiduchin Shalanu, the Vart that we make, the L'chaim that we make, Lo Yev a Sudas Mitzvah, that does not have the status of a Sudas Mitzvah. Kain Kasav Repi Begadim B'Simin Taf Mem Dalet. Ulafizeh, and according to this, Ein La'asoisa Be'erev Shabbos, Afilu Nigmar Hashiduch Ba'isa Yom. Based on that, the Chavetz says, the Chavetz Chaim, there would be no heter to make a substantial Suda. Now again, Suda over here does not mean Kriya Suda with a kibbutz of Pas. It means a substantial party. If you wanted to make a Vart on Erev Shabbos, and you're going to actually, like some Varts that I've seen, if you're going to serve, hot dishes and everything else, that would be a problem. You want to put out cake? Well, let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says now. O mashe noegin lechol mini merkachas b'shas ksivas hatenoim loy mikri Suda. But you want to put out some cake, you want to put out some snacks to celebrate Tanoim, to celebrate an engagement, to Avart, you want to make a small little L'chaim, a small little something, that's not called a Kvias Suda, that's bigger than what you typically eat during the week. That would not be Aser. Ois Katan Yud, the Mechaber said that this is Aser because of Kavod Shabbos. And the Mechaber explained that the problem is, we want to make sure that you come to the Sudas Shabbos when you're hungry. The Mishnah Berurah brings down another reason. V'yesha kasvu, there are those that write, Hatam, another reason why there's a chesaron in Kavod Shabbos to make a substantial Suda on Erev Shabbos. Shemitoich terdas ha-Suda, because if you're busy making a chashav, a party, or you're busy planning a meal, lo yisasku b'tzarchei Shabbos. So then you get wrapped up in that, and then you're not going to be busy with tzarchei Shabbos. Now it's interesting to me that the Mishnah Berurah chose to bring this down. He's bringing it down for the Magen Avraham. Now it's true that the Chavetz Chaim throughout the Mishnah Berurah gives a tremendous amount of weight to the Magen Avraham. So you could look at it, you could say that the Chavetz Chaim saw that the Magen Avraham brought down this tam, he wanted to make sure to bring it down as well. The automatic question that I put to myself is, normally when the Chavetz Chaim does this, I would expect to see right away a nafkamina lahalacha. In other words, why is the Magen Avraham bringing down another tam? Because there's a case where one tam doesn't apply, you should know that the other tam does apply. So let's think of such a case. So we have two different timing over here. One time is we want to make sure that you're going to come into the Friday night Suda when you're hungry. So it could be somebody will say, I have such an appetite that, or it's a very long summertime Erev Shabbos, I could sit down and I could eat a very substantial lunch, and I know I'm still going to be hungry when it comes to the Suda Friday night. You should know, says the Chavetz Chaim, there's another reason, and that is we feel that it's going to take away from your Shabbos prep. You're going to be busy with this extravagant lunch, and you're going to get wrapped up in the preparation or the enjoyment or the drowsiness afterwards, whatever it is, and it's going to take away from Shabbos prep. As far as this reason, there are cases where this reason doesn't apply. Let's say somebody did his Shabbos prep on Thursday, which we're going to see, by the way, is not lechatchila so much. We'll leave that to when we get there. But there are reasons brought down that Shabbos prep should be done specifically on Erev Shabbos. So let's say somebody already did all his Shabbos prep. He doesn't have Shabbos prep to do on Erev Shabbos. Still, he can't sit down to an extravagant Suda because of the problem. We want to make sure that he comes into the Suda Shabbos when he's hungry. We want to make sure he comes into Shabbos hungry. Because the Chavetz Chaim says, even if you eat an extravagant Suda in the morning, since you eat a more substantial and a more extravagant meal than you're used to in the morning, you're not going to eat Friday night with the same zest and the same bread, the same appetite that you would otherwise, and that would be a chesaron in Kavod Shabbos. Now, I just want to point out two bir halachas over here. Bir halacha dibra maschil aser likbaya. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of this year, I found the Mechaber's lashon aser likbaya be'erev Shabbos suda u'mishteh to be an interesting lashon. Like I said, normally we think of kfiyah suda in terms of a kibetza and a pas, which we're not talking about over here. Now, there might be a temptation to understand the phrase asa likbaya a different way. You might think that asa likbaya be'erev Shabbos suda u'mishteh, maybe that means, maybe the Chavetz Chaim, maybe the Mechaber is telling you that you should not make this your every week practice. It's like, think about the word likbaya in the context of a mokim kavua. I have a mokim kavua in shul, my seat that I always sit in. So that's a mokim kavua. Also, likbaya be'erev Shabbos suda, maybe the Mechaber is saying, don't make a regilus, don't be kaiveya, that every week on Erev Shabbos you have an extravagant lunch. You want to do it once in a while? Maybe that's okay. Says the Bir Halacha, no. Also, likbaya, ritzaynoi loymar. What the Mechaber wants to say is, lasay suda kavua. Don't sit down to a meal to make a suda kavua. Va'afilu pamachas b'mechayav. Even to do this once during your life is aser. You never do this, but one Erev Shabbos. You know what? I'm hungry. I want a geschmack breakfast. You're going to sit down to a big breakfast beyond what you ever eat. That's a problem. V'raya lozeh, and the Bir Halacha says, this is a beferish raya from the lashon of the Mechaber. V'raya lozeh sudas erison. Can't cause ever prima godim. The prima godim says that he have a very clear raya. If it would be mutter to do it once in a while, so what would the problem be with the sudas erison? So you'll make a substantial sudas erison. Sudas erison is once in a while. It's once in a blue moon. So what's the problem? Elamai, that's not what also likbaya suda means. Also, likbaya means a kvius, to sit down to a meal. Don't sit down to eat an extravagant meal on Erev Shabbos. Don't eat an extravagant breakfast. Don't eat an extravagant lunch. What's called extravagant? More than you would typically do during the week. Says, that brings us to the next Bir Halacha. Pardon the drink, Rabbi say. The truth is that I'm usually makbid, that if I'm going to drink in the middle of a shir, when I'm being marbitz Torah l'Rambam, it should be more bakavadik. I usually do it from a crystal glass. But I forgot to bring a drink with me when I sat down to say shir, and this was here. And I need the lubrication for my throat, and it's more important for that than this is. It would be more of a chesaron in Kavod HaTorah if I would have to stop the shir. Okay, weiter. Says the Bir Halacha, she'enoi rogel b'mei hachol. The bar is a suda that's more extravagant than what you would typically eat during the week. Says the Chavetz Chaim, va'afilu imhu asher b'yoser. even if a person happens to be a very wealthy individual. You have a fellow who's a very wealthy fellow, so he eats extravagant breakfasts and extravagant lunches all week. He eats Kesuda Shloima B'Shaitoi every day of the week. Erev Shabbos yesh limnoya milasis kain kedei sheyochal l'teyavain balayla. Says the Chavetz Chaim, on Erev Shabbos, cut back on the amount that you usually eat for this reason, so that you should be able to come into the Suda Shabbos l'teyavain. I tell you, it's an amazing thing. The crystal glass just appeared in the middle of Shir. A big thank you to the one who brought it. She knows who she is. Kein Muchach Barashi Gittin Lamed Ches Amid Beis Dibra Maschel Be'erev Shabbos Ayin Sham. Okay. Weiter. Says, we didn't get to the Ramah. 2 lines off the bottom and middle of the line in the Mechaber. V'chol hayoim bechlal ha'isser. This isser that you shouldn't eat an extravagant Suda, this is Negeah all day long, even from breakfast. You daven at nets, and you want to come home and have a big breakfast, you're not allowed to do that. Hago. Now we have the Ramah. Says the Ramah. U'su'uda shezmano Erev Shabbos, a Suda that the Zman for that Suda falls out at Erev Shabbos. Kigod bris mila, you have a baby, the bris fell out on Erev Shabbos, so then the Zman of the Suda's bris is Erev Shabbos. Oy pidyon haben, if the 30th day is Erev Shabbos, so the Zman of the pidyon haben, the Zman of the Suda for the pidyon haben is Erev Shabbos. Mutter, then it's mutter, says the Ramah. Kein nirali, so it appears to me, says the Ramah. V'chein haminik pashut, and that is the pashut haminik. Says the Mishnah Berurah, ois katan yud beis, bris mila. Afilu im eina bashmini lileidosai. Says the Mishnah Berurah, and he brings this down from the Magen Avram. How about if you have a bris that's not bismanoi? You have a baby who you aren't able to be mal bismanoi, so the bris got pushed off, and now you're making the bris when the baby is 14 days old, or 16 days old, or what have you. So it's not a bris bismanoi. Are you still allowed to make the Suda of that bris? If the moil said, okay, the baby is ready for the bris now, Erev Shabbos. So this is not a bris bismanoi. Do you make the Suda on Erev Shabbos? Says the Mishnah Berurah, yes. Afilu im eina bashmini lileidosai. Even if the bris is not happening on day 8. The baby was ill on day 8, vinitches, and the bris got pushed off. Still, the day that you're ready to make the bris is called the zman of the bris and the zman for the sudas bris. The kol shaita v'shaita zmanehu, because whenever it falls out, whenever you're finally able to make the milah, that's called zmanoi. That's the zman that you do it. When the baby is ready to be brought into the bris, you don't turn around and say, oh, it's not convenient today. I think I'll wait another 3 days. No, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to leave the baby in Arl. So memela, that means that as soon as the baby's ready, that's the Zman. If that's the Zman, then that's the Zman for the Suda. Even if somehow you weren't able to make the Pidyon Haben on day 30, since every day after day 30, you have a chiv to make the Pidyon, so then as soon as you do it, that's called the Zman. Ice cut Yud Gimel. The Ramah said mutter for Sudas Mitzvah, like the Milo of the Pidyon Haben. You're allowed to do it Bizmani, even if it's Erev Shabbos. Tihi Gamkein Sudas Mitzvah. Says the Chavetz Chaim, the rationale is the Suda that you're making is itself a Sudas Mitzvah. Ve'ein l'tchoisam mipnei Suda Shabbos. What are you going to do? You're going to turn around and say, I can't make the Sudas Bris because of a potential chesaron to the Sudas Shabbos. The Sudas Bris is a Sudas Mitzvah. So Memela, you're allowed to do it. However, says the Chavetz Chaim, you should try to make the Suda earlier in the day because of Kavod Shabbos, so that you should preserve the idea of coming into the Friday night Suda b'Teyavon. U'kamoishe mavur b'Siman Taf Reish Tzadik Kesef Beis le'inyan Sudas Purim Erev Shabbos u'b'diavad yachal ha'asaysa afilu mimincha u'lamayla. Now, that really ends today's Dirshu page. There's a couple of things I'd like to point out. So, first of all, Bir Halacha, Dibur HaMaschil Oy Pidyon HaBen. The Bir Halacha says there's another Sudas mitzvah that you're allowed to make bismanoi. What's that? Says the Bir Halacha, V'hu adin b'siyam mesechta. So too, when you make a siyam on a mesechta, you're allowed to make that Suda, and you can make a more extravagant Suda on Erev Shabbos. Now, this is very, very interesting. It piqued my curiosity, and I see that there's an interesting Dirshu footnote over here. Dirshu footnote number 14. It says over here, V'chol zeh b'mishe es ha-mesechta be'erev Shabbos. That's true if you finished the Mesechta on Erev Shabbos. In other words, it's an organic siyam. You finished the Mesechta on Erev Shabbos, and now that you finished the Mesechta, you want to celebrate. So, okay, celebrating the finishing of a Mesechta is a valid celebration, and the Suda is a Suda's mitzvah. If you did it then. Sha'az nechshav hadavar kesiyam izmana. The Ramah, the Pir Halacha, is comparing this to the other cases of the Ramah. The other cases of the Ramah are Sudas that fell out on a distinct day. The Suda's Bris Milah is today because today is the 8th day. Or today's the day that we can make the bris. So it's a mitzvah today. Siyam, we're very used to a guy finishes a Masechta. Yeah, I'm going to make the Siyam 2 weeks from now. Or somebody finishes a Masechta, this is all Shaila. Somebody finishes a Masechta, I'm going to make the Siyam during the 9 days so that we can eat fleishiks. That's a very inorganic, so to speak, Siyam. That's I chose to celebrate it at a certain time. Says the footnote over here, and he brings this down from Nisan Karelis. If you finished the Masechta 2 weeks ago, and now you decided you want to make a Tayameh, which we'll get to, I think, tomorrow, you want to make a big celebration on Erev Shabbos, you can't go ahead and make an extravagant Suda for that on Erev Shabbos. Now, I wasn't going to read the next piece of the footnote, but I decided that I will. The Haisif, Reb Nissen Karelis adds, Shegeder shal siyum, the geder of what's considered a Sudas mitzvah when it comes to a siyum, einay elikish a siyum davar shalim. It's when you complete a davar shalim. Ukigoin, for example, kish a siyum mesechta shlema, you finish a ganze mesechta, oy seder shalim mishal mishnayis, or a seder of mishnayis, afal pi shaloi siyum is called sheishes sidra ha-mishnah. Now, it happens to be that the Rishiva Zatzal, Rav Moshe Zatzal Shavracha, once said that a person could make a siyum, and it would be considered a Sudas mitzvah, on any davar shalem that to him really feels chashuv. Now, the shaila came up once on somebody who really had no background in learning whatsoever. And he sat down to learn Gemara for the first time. And he really put himself into it. I'm not talking about somebody who went to like a real, Haschalos Gemara class where they just taught him basic Taich. The guy really went into, he learned Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos. He really put himself into it. And it took him a while until he finished his first blot. Rav Moshe said he could make a siyum on a blot. Because for him, the chashivas of that first blot and the simcha of finishing that blot was so tremendous, he was able to make a siyum even on one blot Gemara. Okay, I thought there was another footnote. Give me 1 second. Yeah, another thing that struck me interesting over here. The Mishnah Berurah said over here in Ice Cotton Yud Gimel, that the rationale, why do we allow you to make an extravagant Suda like a Bris Suda or a Pidyon HaBen Suda on Erev Shabbos, despite the potential chesaron of Kibbutz Shabbos, said the Chavetz Chaim, because this is also a Suda's mitzvah. Why is this Suda's mitzvah any less than that Suda's mitzvah? So it's very interesting over here in footnote number 12, brings down over here, Umikana chiach hashari tshuva, sha'af sudas bris mila shaloi bezmana, nechsheves sudas mitzvah. V'shaloi k'may shekasa b'shalas tshuvas are nelam, huva b'shari tshuva shesudas bris shaloi bezmana, ein lo shoyrish v'ikar b'shas. So we see that there was actually a question whether the suda that you make to celebrate a bris shaloi bezmana, is that considered a sudas mitzvah or not? Shari Tshuva says, you see from here, that it is. But then the next paragraph over here, V'ha mitzvah shel sudas bris mila bizmana. How about a regular, standard sudas bris mila bizmana? We call it a sudas mitzvah. But what exactly does that mean? Kasav Shari Tshuva b'shem shalos tshuvas are nelam, shehi midaraisa. That it's a mitzvah midaraisa. B'shem shalos tshuvas beis Yaakov kasav, shemitzvah zu eina ela midarabanan. V'chein kasav b'bir halacha, he brings down from Taf Reish Ben, b'shem hagra, le'inyan tudas bris mila b'sukkis. Shekevich yasudas mila ain't a mitzvah midaraisa. The Gra says that the suda of a bris mila is not a mitzvah daraisa. Ein hu doich es mitzvah sukkah. Rei ma'ashekasu al'alon b'bir halacha dibra maskal muter. Okay, thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be making against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe Shalom should send Yeshua's refuahs parnasu sheduchim to those in need. We should be zoichet to see the BS called Tzedek b'meherav yameinu. Amen. Be well.